Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well on this Monday, the day after the Super Bowl. The dream is dead. The season is over. Is it time to move on from football? Well, we will still cover football at FantasyGuru.com. As we were reminded multiple times on the broadcast yesterday, the UFL starts in just a handful of weeks. We will be covering the UFL over at FantasyGuru.com. We've got a great product over there that can obviously help you out and have success there. So we'll talk more about that when we get closer to that, because we do actually have a great product for UFL. So anyway, don't want to talk about the UFL today. Want to talk about some other things today. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me here today, as you hopefully do every day, Monday through Friday. I'm with you Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Festerman's with you on Wednesdays. What we do is we have some fun here on the show. Pre-show, we always obviously encourage you to go to FantasyGuru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page, get signed up. But this show, Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, is free. What are we talking about today? Well, duh. We're talking about the Super Bowl and Yiker-Roonies. We won't spend – I was hoping to spend some more time on this because I was hoping it was going to be a good game. It wasn't. We'll talk a little bit about that. I know on the Elite Sports Show today at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Jeff Manns will have a full breakdown of the Super Bowl. We'll probably spend the entire show talking about it. Jeff's show, the Elite Sports Show, again, is on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Friday from 3 to 6. I'm with him on Wednesdays, which is why I'm not here on Wednesdays. But I tune into that because I'm sure we'll spend 3 hours talking about the game. We'll spend 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. We'll spend however long we spend on what was a terribly disappointing game for a variety of reasons. We'll then talk a little bit of baseball. We got some news starting to percolate. We're getting close to the start of the preseason, start of spring training at least. Major League Baseball. We'll talk some pitchers like Sandy Alcantara and Eury Perez coming back from injury. What are the Dodgers doing in the ninth inning? What are the Blue Jays doing in the starting rotation? Luis Rengifo, Brandon Drury, Yoan Moncada all have ties to the Angels. One of them might be the starting third baseman for the Angels this year. What's going on with Nolan Arenado? What do the Padres do? They made a bunch of moves over the weekend. We might touch on SWIP and ABA, the SWIP article up right now over at FantasyGuru.com. Remember, that product at FantasyGuru.com is updated on virtually a daily basis. Again, I haven't promised it just in case something comes up or what have you. But basically, since we started talking about the draft guide here on the show, we have updated every single day over at FantasyGuru.com with a new article. So I really encourage people to get signed up now. It's time. The Super Bowl's over. What are you waiting for? Spring training's about to start. What are you waiting for? Go to FantasyGuru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, and make sure you bookmark the homepage. You go to FantasyGuru.com, you scroll down a little bit, see that blue section for MLB. You can find it there. You can also go to FantasyGuru.com/2025-MLB-draft-guide and find all the articles there so you don't miss any of them if you miss a day or two at the website because you're doing other things. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. Oh, and I guess I should mention this too, by the way. I already see people, Doug, Sean in the chat room. For those of you that are new here, because maybe you just heard of this for the first time, or maybe you're coming out of your Super Bowl coma, getting ready to do some baseball stuff, we do have the ability to watch the show or listen to the show in a variety of avenues. The first one being on our Twitter page at Fantasy Guru site. And then we have Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. Then we have YouTube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. All three of those spots, you can watch us live. You can obviously watch us on demand later too. But you can watch us live and ask questions and leave comments that we will address directly to the show. You can also type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network, or just go to FantasyGuru.com. Click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page, find out all the shows that we've got going, including this one. You can find it cataloged there. Okay. The Eagles defeated the Chiefs 40-22. There were people that predicted the Eagles would win this game. It's not a shock that they won this game. Not at all. The score of the game and the method they won this game was something that only a crackpot would have predicted. Straight up. The Eagles scored 40 points, and they had they had the possession for about 712 minutes of this game. This was one of the more wildly unexpected outcomes I think that you'll pretty much ever see in the NFL. It just did not go as expected. The Eagles had the ball for 37 minutes in this game to 23 for the Chiefs. The Chiefs could put nothing together offensively at all at any point, and they couldn't really stop the Eagles, though. The Eagles won the game in a manner that we weren't expecting. So let's talk about it. Let's start out with the Chiefs side of things. There are rumors, by the way, that Travis Kelce may or may not retire. We'll see. I will give full marks to Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes stood up there after the game and said, look, we blew it. We lost. They beat us. And I appreciated that, right? No hiding, no blaming anybody. Just they beat us. So there you go. Mahomes himself, in the end, decent statistical game, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, he threw a couple of picks. One of the picks was just like, what? But what basically happened, and they comment on this throughout the game, if you didn't see the game, this is new news to you. If you saw the game, I'm just repeating what was said. Virtually every offensive possession for the Chiefs' offensive line was overrun by the Eagles' defensive line. And it wasn't like the Eagles were blitzing on every play. Their front four, the Eagles, just manhandled the Chiefs' offensive line, period. So when they weren't blitzing to get pressure on Mahomes was scrambling around trying to do something through the air. Everyone was covered because they were dropping everyone back into coverage. The offensive line, I mean, and again, I think if for all those people that don't think offensive lines are that important, they don't think coaching is that important, oh, the guy can jump really high, throw the ball really far, all those kind of things. You saw a game yesterday that proved directly how important the offensive and defensive lines are. Because the fact of the matter is the Chiefs had no chance in this game. They absolutely 100% simply put could not stop the Eagles defense from getting to Mahomes. Mahomes would try to step up to avoid the pressure. They were getting pressure up the middle. And, if you're getting pressure up the middle as a defensive line, you've won the game. And Mahomes was constantly under duress. Because of that, he made some bad decisions. They fell behind. He pushed things a little bit, and it just didn't work. You look at the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs carried the ball. Their running backs carried the ball 7 times for 24 yards. Now, they fell way behind and kind of had to abandon the run anyway, but they did not have a running back, the Chiefs. None of their running backs, Pirine, Hunt, Pacheco, none of them ran for 10 yards. And no matter what the game flow was like, and no matter how good your quarterback is, you can't win a game with no one running for 10 yards. I mean, come on. So, there was nothing to talk about on the ground. They weren't able to do anything. They fell behind. They had to push the ball. It didn't work. Xavier Worthy exploded, 8 catches for 157 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Obviously, he had that 50-yard touchdown with 2 minutes left in the game that was completely meaningless. Not that his first touchdown was meaningful, but he was able to have a big game. It was really the only offensive performer that stood out for the Chiefs in this one. Travis Kelce, we talked about earlier, 4 catches for 39 yards. He dropped the ball in the first half. He had a low throw that he couldn't corral. That's not a drop, but Aaron Andrews called it a drop. It wasn't a drop. When you're spinning backwards and the ball's below your knee, I'll give him a pass on that. He did have a single drop, though. Didn't do anything. DeAndre Hopkins had a horrible drop. He tripped as he was running and wide open. It's going to be a 25-yard play, wide open, tripped and fell over. He had caught 2 balls for 18 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster had 2 for 16. Marquise Brown had 2 for 15. That was it. They got a huge break early to the Chiefs on that pass interference call on A.J. Brown, which was an absolutely horrible call. And then all the announcers said it. Pereira, whatever gentleman from the referee, he said it. It was a terrible. A.J. Brown pushed his hand out and hit the dude in the face, and they called the penalty. It was a terrible call. And I'm thinking to myself, well, like a lot of you probably were, please don't NFL. Please don't have this be a scenario where the referees jump in this game and bias things toward the Chiefs. Even if they had biased things toward the Chiefs, it wouldn't matter. They didn't, but if they had, it wouldn't have mattered. The Eagles beat the Chiefs, period. That is the worst football game the Chiefs have played in 6 years? They had no answer for anything. That first half was a absolute destruction. I'm talking to my gal. We're watching the game here, and she's like, okay, I know this game's out of reach. Could they come back? I'm like, 1% chance. Like, this game's over at halftime. It's over. It's just over. They got nothing. And that's just the way it ended up for the Chiefs. On the other side of things, again, the Eagles won this football game. They controlled the football game. They controlled the clock. They scored 40 points, and Saquon Barkley didn't even run for 60 yards. And that's what I was talking about when I first started discussing this game. If you had asked somebody before the game, if the Eagles were winning this game, how are they going to do it? Well, they're going to have to pass. We know that. But really, they're going to have to do what they've done all season long, which is control the clock, which they did do, and have Saquon Barkley run for his 100-plus yards. 25 carries for 57 yards. He had a long run of 10 yards. There was nothing there. The Chiefs shut him down. Completely shut him down. Right? Gainwell had 6 carries for 10 yards. Like, that's 33 carries for 67 yards, 2 yards a carry. They completely shut down the running game. Now, what they didn't shut down at all was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was able to run the ball 11 times for 72 yards and a touchdown. Multiple times, plays broke down at the line of scrimmage, and he just ran in the open field for double-digit yards. As a passer, he made one horrible decision on the interception where he just chucked it up with pressure in his face. But other than that, he was masterful. 221 yards, couple scores, minus that one pass, 17 for 21 in terms of his completions. He just played great football. And, DeVonta Smith scored a touchdown. A.J. Brown scored a touchdown. Yoan Dotson missed a touchdown by about a yard. And that probably would have made the day of everyone that randomly, was playing DFS or even the one and done who randomly threw Dotson hoping to get, the guy scored that no one's playing, right? Just missed by about, 26 inches or something like that. So anyway, Barkley did catch 6 balls for 40 yards, but that was a terrible Barkley effort, and they still scored 40 points. They still had the ball for 36 minutes, and they still won a football game easily by smashing a Chiefs team that has not been smashed like that in years. You saw it flash on the screen. It was the biggest deficit Patrick Mahomes ever faced. So kudos to the Eagles. That was a dominating effort. Kind of a letdown, right? I'm not the only one that feels that way, right? Kind of a letdown. Like, we're hoping for this at least. And I said this. Everyone says it's a good game. And again, if the Eagles won the game over the Chiefs, I'm fine. Whatever. Who cares? It's not about I'm an Eagles fan or anything like that. Just wanted a good game. The game was over at halftime. It was over. So kudos to the Eagles who won a football game. And now the questions are, again, is Kelce going to return? Are the Chiefs going to add a receiver that's not, kind of a reclamation project? Are they going to, work on the offensive line? Because that again was the issue yesterday. All season long, Mahomes has been getting the ball out, can't extend plays unless he does it with his legs, right? Because he can't just sit in the pocket. They weren't able to do that this year. That's one of the reasons that his passing numbers went down too. So it's a long off season. We'll see what they do. The Chiefs obviously be back as a Super Bowl contender next year. No doubt about that. Eagles won the football game 40-22. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the commercials, and maybe this is me. Are the commercials getting worse? I don't know. Like, I feel like the last 2 years the commercials have kind of sucked. I don't really know why. And I will say this too. I never buy anything because of a commercial. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw, a commercial. I got to go buy. So I really don't think that the advertising works at all on me, but especially during non-Super Bowl hours, I will not watch commercials. I will start watching a live sporting event 45 minutes late just so I don't have to watch a commercial. I'm not a commercial guy ever on anything. If they're like these free streaming services, you can watch free with commercials. I'm not watching anything on there. I'm a snob when it comes to commercials. So I never watch commercials, but watched them. And, were any of them good yesterday? I like the Stella Artois one with Beckham and Damon, talking trash about Ben Affleck. The Dunkin' Donuts one was really cool. I thought the Dunkin' Donuts one was good, right? The Affleck brothers, you had Bill Belichick and his gal, you had the fancy, snooty, coffee people against Dunkin'. Oh, that was good. So those were kind of my 2 favorites, but I don't know. Am I the only one that thinks the commercials kind of, I see Sean talking about this. Halftime show, yuck, not my bag. I don't want to get all political, so I won't. And I'm not saying this has anything to do directly with you, Sean, but I saw a lot of people making comments all over the place. You don't like rap? Cool, you don't like rap. Did you like the show recently when Eminem was out there and Dre? I don't know, was it just Kendrick Lamar? I admit, I don't know Kendrick Lamar. I don't have an album of his. Never downloaded a song of his. No idea. The beat sounded pretty good. And I think he was rapping live, which was pretty good because live rappers aren't always great. I wasn't impressed by the show, but I like rap. Talked about it a lot on my Sirius XM app. I've got the NWA channel live. I've got the LL Cool J's channel, 43, 44, 45 Shade. Like, I like rap. I'm not a Kendrick Lamar guy, but I saw a lot of people smashing Kendrick Lamar like that was a terrible show. It wouldn't have picked him if if there wasn't a reason for it. It's like not every halftime has to be someone singing country music. I don't like country music, so I don't like it when it's a country music show. But anyway, I did see a lot of people, Sean, say that. You're not the only one by any stretch. So we'll see what the NFL does next year for their halftime show. If they, obviously, I would assume, completely avoid rap. Okay, let's move on and talk a little baseball here. And again, Sean, Angelo, Doug, everyone in the chat room, thanks again. I always appreciate all of you for talking to each other and being positive and kind and not causing problems. We had some of that over the weekend in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. It's like, geez, Jeff Mans posts a note on his Twitter account saying, congratulations, Eagles. I'm really happy for him. And people are responding, well, yeah, but we're not happy for the Eagles fans. That's not. Why does everyone have to turn everything negative, right? I'm a negative person by nature. I would go 1 for 3 with a home run when I was growing up as a baseball player with 2 strikeouts, win a game, and it's happened. I went 1 for 3 one game, won the game with a home run in the bottom of the 6th inning. My parents were all excited. My teammates were all excited. I was all pissed off because I struck out twice. I won the game with a home run. I struck out twice, was pissed off. That's always how I've been. I've always seen glasses half empty. And the way people are nowadays, they're making me look like Susie Sunshine. Like everyone is just so negative. My God. So everyone try to be happy, which is, again, why I comment on all of you here in the show, because you all do a great job of staying positive. All of you guys and gals do a great job. So thank you so much for that. Always appreciated that about this group. And John says, "Go Birds, that was amazing." Yeah, depending how old you are, John, right? You may not have seen the previous Super Bowl championship. So, congratulations there. There you go. Okay, so yeah, there's a comment in there that I'm not going to address. Okay, let's talk some baseball. Sandy Alcantara, Eury Perez. Sandy Alcantara, obviously a Cy Young performer when healthy. Eury Perez, a potential Cy Young winner when healthy. Alcantara is coming back from his elbow surgery. He said last week on Friday that he basically said, "I feel good. I'm ready to go. I will let the team handle me the first couple of months of the season however they want. But after the first couple of months of the season, they better turn me loose." I'm paraphrasing. That's basically what he said. So he missed all last year coming back from Tommy John surgery. We know prior to the injury, Alcantara was a guy that was racking up 180, 190, 200 innings. It's not reasonable with the way players are handled coming back from Tommy John surgery to expect that this season. Could we get him qualifying for the ERA title? Could we get him to 162 innings? I think we could. But he himself is, he's admitting here, like at the start, they're probably going to be a little bit slow with me. He's a very intriguing option on draft day because depending upon your draft, he might be somebody that's targeted. He might not be. He might be somebody that's not targeted. Current ADP is 165. That's not, and if he's throwing 180 innings at that, golden. If he's throwing 160 innings at that level, okay. But that's, again, provided he's Sandy Alcantara. If his whip is 1.28 and his ERA is 3.9 and the strikeout rate is down a little bit, so he's intrigued. I'll be very interested to see how his ADP moves or doesn't move based upon what we see in spring. But the good news at the end is that Alcantara says he's healthy, he says he feels good, and he's ready to go. And that's great to hear at this point of the season. His teammate, Eury Perez, is going to pitch this year in the big leagues. It sounds like, and he's throwing bullpens already coming back from his own Tommy John surgery. It sounds like Perez is looking at around the All-Star break for a return. So if we look at his ADP over at the NFBC, and that's the ADP we always use here on the show, Eury Perez, if we look at his ADP, it's 560. So he's not even being drafted. The NFBC does not have IR spots, or IL spots, sorry, wrong sport. Doesn't have IL spots. So in your league where you could take Perez in the 25th round and then stash him, that's different. You can't do this in the NFBC. You would have to keep him on your bench and just waste a bench spot, which is very difficult to do when you only have 6 bench spots. So that's part of the reason he dropped a little bit. And the other obvious reason is he's likely to miss half the season. We play this game all the time. I've mentioned many times already this year the fact that I played this game last year with Max Scherzer. In my leagues that have IL spots, I picked Scherzer in the 24th, 5th round, tried to wait it, and, it was okay. He made 9-10 starts, whatever. It didn't work out. You can try to be smarter than the system. And again, there are scenarios where it makes sense to do that. I think Perez is one of those guys that, now Perez, let's say he comes back right at the All-Star break. The first time back, he throws 62 pitches, then it's 72 pitches, then it's 80 pitches for 5 straight outings. Then they finally let him get to 90 pitches in his 7th outing. It's some of that too. So Perez is obviously ranked over at fantasyguru.com. He's not ranked highly. I don't anticipate moving him up. In fact, we might move him down the rankings a little bit. And whether or not you draft Eury Perez is almost completely dependent upon whether or not your league has IL spots, unlimited IL spots. How does it handle? Is it a keeper dynasty league? That's a totally different scenario. So there you go. There you go. All right, let's talk a little bit about some bullpens here. And we mused about this scenario. Well, we did more than this. We talked about this a lot. The Dodgers and their extensive spending and all the issues with that. And I said when they brought in Kirby Yates, which seemed just like piling on, that you look at Kirby Yates, what he did last year, he's right-handed, but look at what he did last year. He's got to be involved in the 9th inning. But they gave $72 million to Tanner Scott. How is Tanner Scott not going to be the guy, even though he's left-handed? So we had Dave Roberts talking to Jim Bowden over the weekend, and he said that brunt of the club's save opportunities to begin the season will go to Tanner Scott. Now, again, follow the money, right? Like, you got a $13 million deal for Yates, which is a lot of money for 1 year for a setup guy. But it's only a 1-year deal, and he's older. Tanner Scott is dominant. He has been for a couple of years now since he's basically locked in a little bit better in terms of his walk rate. The fact of the matter is the Dodgers, for the last couple of years at least, have not had guys racking up 30 saves. Basically, since Kenley Jansen moved on, they haven't had guys racking up 30 saves. And the Dodgers, by osmosis, the Dodgers are winning 90 games. The question is it 100, 105? They're just trying to make the playoffs, right? So they don't want to burn guys out. They want to be smart about it. They want to play matchups. We're not talking about other guys, right? I haven't mentioned Phillips' name yet. I haven't mentioned Trinan's name yet. I haven't mentioned Kopech's name. Like, all these guys could get saves at some point. But it does sound like, and with the rankings over at fantasyguru.com have been adjusted to reflect this, it does sound like Scott is the guy right now that you want in the bullpen for the Dodgers. Does that mean he's getting 35 saves? Hard to see that happening. Could it happen? Yes, but it's hard to see it happening. Is he in the 20 to 25 save range? I feel much better about that prognosis, right? And then give me 14 saves for Yates and a handful of saves for the other guys if everything goes well, kind of thing, right? That's kind of how I see it. Now, again, that could be totally wrong. He could get 35 saves out of Tanner Scott. But the fact is they have multiple guys. And again, Phillips could close, Kopech could close, Trinan could close. Like, this bullpen is, as expected, pretty dominant. So right now, Scott's the guy you want. I would be cautious to really aggressively target Scott because he's the closer of the Dodgers. I would not do that. So be careful you don't push him way up. Let's look at his ADP right now. We're getting into ADP mode now that baseball's over. Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott's ADP is 170 in the month of February. And Kirby Yates is 140. So according to NFBC, and again, this is only 22 drafts because the month had just started, but according to the NFBC, they were taking Yates ahead of Scott. Well, that will probably switch here in the next couple of days because of the information, obviously, that we're sharing here with you on the show. All right, next up, who is the closer of the Rangers? And we mentioned this storyline. Was it last week? I think it was last week. We were talking about solds and saves and the rankings over at fantasyguru.com. And we talked about the Rangers scenario, and I said, look, at the end of the day, it appears that the closer is going to be Chris Martin. Right? That's what it appears now. Chris Martin's almost 40 years old, and he's never been a closer. He's really good. In the last couple of seasons, he's been fantastic. But that profile just doesn't say ninth. It just doesn't, right? And we mentioned John Gray and how it's kind of out there. Maybe John Gray could see some work in the 9th inning and whatever, right? Well, Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News is now reporting that there have been internal discussions with the Rangers about the potentiality of John Gray working the 9th inning. So, maybe. Now, the problem here with John Gray is we don't want to draft him and have him end up being the 5th starter for the Rangers because then who cares? If we draft him to be the closer of the Rangers, we might still have a scenario where it's who cares. So let's be very cautious here when we're talking about Jon Gray and understand who he is and isn't. Jon Gray is 33 years old. He has no saves in his career. He has made 223 starts in his 228 career outings. Now, again, there's guys like Eckersley that have transitioned to the bullpen. It happens, okay. But 220 starts is a lot of start to then transition to the bullpen as a 30-plus-year-old. Gray has long been somebody, if you look at the individual pieces, you will find a guy that you like. If you look at him in total, he's just an average guy. And his career whip is 131. His whip the last 2 years is 130. His strikeout rate the last 2 years is 20%. Like, this is not even, he's not even really league average the last couple of seasons. Now, a lot of the issues that Gray has dealt with is, of course, health. That continues to be something that just he can't get away from, health. The Rangers don't have a guy. They've got Garcia, they've got Milner, they've got Mark, we talked about. Gray could end up working the ninth inning. And while that doesn't get me warm and fuzzy, I don't think it should either with you, it is an interesting scenario to think about because Gray is somebody that if he has his control, and of course that's who knows on a daily basis, right? He throws his slider and his fastball roughly 90% of the time. So his changeup and his curveball, 5%, 7%, something like that. So roughly 90% of the time, it's a two-pitch guy. That plays better when you're a two-pitch guy in the bullpen versus not, right? And we've seen a lot of guys transition to the bullpen who throw 93 miles an hour. Now they're in the bullpen, they're throwing 95. Because, right, they're not out there expecting to throw 75 pitches. They're going out there to throw 18 pitches. So this is definitely something we want to keep a close eye on. Who's the closer there? Are they going to have a closer there? Are they going to make a signing? Are they going to bring back David Robinson? Right now, Jon Gray's ADP is 602 at the NFBC. So if you're doing a draft tonight and you want to make Gray your 29th round pick, okay. Like, again, I'm not a huge fan. I think I've discussed that here, but okay. So Jon Gray, maybe he's somebody that will be working the ninth inning. And if he does end up working the ninth inning, even if he gets 10 saves, right? He's the closer the first 2 months and then he gets hurt or something like that. And an ADP of 600, playing with house money. Speaking of pitchers, let's move on to the Blue Jays. And Yariel Rodriguez is somebody who has a really nice arm. He came over from Cuba, right? Cuba. He didn't pitch much last year because he really didn't pitch the previous season. They wanted to make sure his arm was okay. They didn't want to ramp him up and have him throw 150 innings after not throwing anything, right? So he went out there and was effective last year, had some nice moments down the stretch. It was decent when the season was over. Now, the question is, and I brought this up, I think I brought this up last week when Max Scherzer signing happened with the Blue Jays. Like, okay, the Blue Jays just signed Max Scherzer. Okay, so Bowden Francis, was one of the better pitchers in baseball in the second half last year. They've got Bassett, Barrios, and Gausman. And Rodriguez is back in the bullpen. He's a swing guy, right? And they've got a guy like Ricky Tiedemann coming back from injury. I don't know when he's going to pitch this year. He's their number one left-handed pitching prospect. He's probably going to be late in the year, if anything. Alec Manoah is coming back from his own surgery at UCL. He had an internal brace procedure. So, I think he'll be around at some point in the midseason for the Blue Jays. They have options here. So my assumption was, Rodriguez will probably end up as a long guy in the bullpen. But if he moved into the rotation, that'd be someone who we'd be intrigued with. GM Ross Atkins told reporters about Rodriguez over the weekend that he's going to compete for a spot. And here's the actual quote. Yaro will come in stretched out and compete for that fifth spot. He'll remain dead for us, and we'll make a decision on halfway or three-quarters of the way through spring training to put our pieces in the best position to be successful, unquote. Now, again, looking at the way things are, if there is a scenario playing out where everyone is healthy, Gausman, Barrios, Bassett, Scherzer, Francis, I just can't see how Rodriguez does enough to overcome any of those guys. Now, the problem that they have for the Blue Jays, and this is also something we've discussed previously, is that if we look right now at their projected opening day roster for their pitchers, they have one left-handed pitcher. No starters are lefty. One left-handed pitcher, Brandon Little. That is not good. Just not. And you can talk about guys that have reverse splits and all that kind of stuff. One lefty on your entire pitching staff is not good. So there's no advantage to Francis or Rodriguez here because they're both righties. So that's not an edge. Francis was a little bit of smoke and mirrors last year. We'll be writing about him over at fantasyguru.com. in the coming weeks. He does not have the pure stuff of Rodriguez. I am more intrigued by Rodriguez. I think you should be more intrigued by Rodriguez. But, as I'm saying here, I think Francis has got the gig, provided he doesn't have an ERA of 14 in the spring and get hurt. So we'll continue to watch this because Rodriguez is somebody that, at about 28 years of age, he's got the skills, especially that slider, which is really good. He's got the skills to be somebody that we could be talking about in a very positive sense. Last year, he struck out a guy an inning, did have some issues with the walk rate of about 11%. That just doesn't work. But I am intrigued by this stuff, and we'll see if the Blue Jays are intrigued enough by what he does in spring to give him a shot. Moving on to some offensive players. I want to talk about Luis Rengifo just to point it out one more time. We brought this up over the weekend, and it's arbitration process. The player submits a price, the team submits a price. Oftentimes, the teams, after they've submitted, they can't come to an agreement, they'll go to arbitration, or they'll sit there and agree to a mid-level point, right? I want 3, you want 2, let's go 2.5, let's go 2.4, let's go 2.6. And I commented when Rengifo went to the arbitration process, like, what is going on here with the Angels? He filed at $5.95 million, and the Angels filed at $5.8 million. They were fighting over $150,000. Like, what? I just don't get this. Rengifo, obviously, unless there is something really special about Anaheim in his personal life, he is gone the moment he can leave. This team is trying to jab him over $150,000. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. They signed Yoan Moncada for $5 million. They gave a guy who doesn't play. He's not on the field. He's always hurt. They gave him $5 million, and they're fighting Rengifo over $150,000. So again, Rengifo, by the way, won his case. So the arbitrator obviously kind of saw the same thing. Like, this guy, he hit 300 last season. He plays all over the field. Anyway, Rengifo's gone. So if you're thinking, I'd be stunned if he signs a contract extension with the Angels at any point. But yeah, so at least he won. That'll be a little bit of a more positive mindset because he won. Again, probably a bad taste in his mouth. Former teammate of his, Brandon Drury, is now with the White Sox. Brandon Drury signed a minor league contract. The White Sox continue to just basically try to ham and egg this, and no one wants to play for the White Sox. The White Sox are terrible. The organization is in disarray. No one wants to go there except when you don't really have a choice. And Brandon Drury didn't really have a choice. He had 28 home runs and 26 home runs in 2022 and 23. A lot of people forget that. He had back-to-back years of going 25-80. Pretty good. And qualifying a couple of spots while doing that too. But last year, as a 31-2-year-old, he was hurt. Didn't quite get to 100 games played. But he had 4 home runs last year. His isolated power mark, which basically records the amount of damage you do when you hit the baseball, was over 200 in 3 consecutive years, and it was 230 and 235 in 2022 and 23, which is a pretty good number. Last year it was 60. The league average was like 160, right? So it was 60 last year. Walk rate was the same, strikeout rate was the same, but when that dude was on the field, it was a wet noodle. He lost multiple, like 2.5 miles an hour on his batted ball profile. The barrel rate went down to the point where he's about a third of where he was the previous 2 years. The hard hit rate was, easily a 4-year low. He was hurt. How much of what he did 2 and 3 years ago is reclaimable after what we saw last season? Because remember, he's 32 now. He was beat up last year. There's always that worry. Now, they offered him a minor league contract, so it's a great investment for the White Sox. It doesn't matter for the White Sox. Get a veteran in here. If he plays well in the first half, you trade him at the trade deadline anyway. All right, that's right. So it makes all the sense in the world. There's a chance for him to be a significant fantasy contributor in an AL league. Mixed league, you look at their infield. They've got Andrew Vaughn at first, Sosa at second, Rojas, who they also signed, he'll play third, and then right now Brooks Baldwin at short with Montgomery coming, their number 1 hitting offensive prospect, Colson Montgomery. So there's not really a spot there. Now, again, is everyone going to stay healthy and all that kind of stuff? Miguel Vargas, they got to see. Miguel Vargas is 25 and is now time. Vargas, somebody that the scouting community has always been a big fan of, who at times in the minor leagues has had tremendous success. As a Major League Baseball player to date has been really bad. His OPS is 586, and that's in 170 games. So, there could be an opportunity here for Drury, not a mixed league opportunity, but just, again, he was pretty good too the last 3 years. Speaking of infielders, let's talk a little bit next about Alex Bregman and what this means downstream. Alex Bregman and just sign Alex. Apparently, the Astros upped their offer to Alex Bregman. Bregman himself is apparently high on the list of wants by the Tigers. So they're still trying to figure out if they can sign him. If they can't sign him, Jace Young and Matt Vierling will probably battle for the third base spot with the Tiger. Young is somebody that's got a pretty nice profile. Vierling is a more established guy and more of a jack of all trades, move him around the lineup kind of guy. Young is the guy they would want to grab the third base job. Is he ready? Is he at that point of his development right now? That's unclear. But they would want that to happen. So, they're probably going to keep Kerry Carpenter at the DH spot. And let's hope he stays healthy because Carpenter is the new Jock Peterson. And I think he can be better than Jock Peterson. So keep that in mind. But Wenzel Perez is around for some depth too. So there's some parts here for the Tigers. If they don't get Bregman, they're not done. They mix and match. They did it last year down the stretch beautifully, obviously on the way to the playoffs. But this is something that matters for those. If you're in a 15-team mixed league, does it matter? If you're in a 10 or 12-team league, it doesn't matter. If you're in a 15-team league, when we hear that Jace Young is going to be the third baseman of the Tigers, maybe. So this is more of a file it away and just kind of see how it goes kind of thing. But Bregman obviously would change that equation significantly, both for him and for the Astros, who are still kind of waiting on him as well. Speaking of the third base spot, let's circle back and go to the Angels. And I mentioned this earlier. Yoan Moncada, which in the most poetic signing in the history of baseball, and I am not really exaggerating there, will battle Anthony Rendon for the starting third base position with the Angels. Now, there was a point in time, just a couple of years ago. Let's look at this. When was his best season? Let's see if I could get this page clear. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Those people have forgotten when Moncada's best year was 2019. Okay, let's pull up Rendon. 2019. In 2019, Anthony Rendon hit .319 with 34 home runs and 126 RBIs. A massive season. In 2019, Yoan Moncada had his only really good season. He hit .315 with 25 home runs, 79 RBIs, and 83 runs scored. So in 2019, if these guys were teammates, you're in the playoffs. Ain't 2019 anymore. Rendon is basically being replaced by Yoan Moncada. And it's hilarious to me because Anthony Rendon is becoming a bench player. He's making $35 million. Remember this. The Angels are paying $35 million a year to Anthony Rendon. They're paying $172 million a year to Mike Trout. And they fought Luis Rengifo over $150,000. Mind-blowing. Moncada signed a one-year, $5 million deal. The Angels know they can't trust Rendon to even be on the field, so they signed Moncada. Hilariously, can they trust him to be on the field? He played 144 games in 2021, so good work. 2022, he played 104. 2023, he played 92. Last year, he played 12. Okay, so, this one, the last 3 years, if you look at those games that Moncada has played, he's hitting .230 with a .290 on-base percentage and a .680 OPS. He doesn't run anymore. His last season of 5 steals was 2019. I know that he's only 29 years old. I know that his prospect chart said this guy was going to be a superstar. I know he was fantastic in 2019. Is he even an everyday player at this point? Is he even I can't say on the damn field. So it's hilarious that they paired him with Rendon. It's mind-boggling they gave him $5 million while fighting Rengifo for $150,000. Moral of the story here is that we can all dream, and someone out there listening, someone listening right now is saying, yeah, Ray, but there's someone out there that's doing it. I know. Because Moncada, if we forget, Moncada was supposed to lead the league. He was supposed to hit 20 home runs and steal 50 bases a year. Like, people forget how incredibly high the prospect pedigree was with Moncada. And there was that one magical season. And the last time he was league average player was 2021. He's not yet 30 years old. I almost can guarantee we will get a story at some point here, market folks, over the next month and a half. The next 2 weeks, right? The Yoan Moncada is in the best shape of his life. We're going to get the report. And someone's going to dream. He's going to go 4 for 6 in a spring game, right? Don't be that person. If Moncada goes out there and is a league average performer, who cares? If he goes out there and he's better than a league average performer, I'd be stunned. Just don't take the bait. And an AL league is different. Sure, fine. Mixed league, I don't care if you're in a 15-team mixed league. Don't make a move on Yoan Moncada. It's just not, just don't do it. And I don't care if he looks good in spring. We get these, don't care. We're not in on Yoan Moncada. And finally, at the third base position, Nolan Arenado. He's not going to the Yankees, apparently. That's another team that has been rumored. Right now, the Yankees, I guess, are going with Oswaldo Cabrera at third base. The Yankees still, do they do that? Do they make a move? We'll see. But Arenado still out there, and Arenado's still a guy that, his team doesn't want him. And the Cardinals can't find a fit. And the closer this gets to the start of spring, because the Cardinals they have directly said their number one priority is to get rid of Arenado. Like, you can't go, you're going into spring training with him still on the roster. Like, that's not good for him. It's not good for the team. It's not good for his teammates. It's just not good. So maybe this just comes together here the next couple of days because they just got to do something. Maybe the Cardinals have to just basically admit that if we're not going to keep this guy, we're just not getting anything for him. And that's just, he's making $30 million a year. Like, how much are you going to pay that down? But we'll see. Nolan Arenado coming off his worst season ever last year. And again, he had a back issue. He's 33. He'll be 34 in April. The back issue at that age, it's getting a little concerning. He played 152 games, so he was still out there all the time. But his performance did slip. And it slipped to the point where, now he's looking league average. Now, this is way better than Anthony Rendon. Let's not get crazy. But he's slipping to the level of league average. His 86 mile an hour exit velocity number last year was a career low. And that's a horrible number. 88 miles an hour, roughly league average. 86 miles an hour is terrible. His career number is 89. When it's over 2 miles an hour, it's a catastrophic fail in the exit velocity number. His barrel rate wasn't even half of his career number. Catastrophic fail. His hard hit rate was down from 37% the previous 3 years to 31%. Again, catastrophic fail. He did not drive the baseball last year. And given the back woes and his advancing age, that's obviously why they're having a hard time moving him. Some notes to talk about with the Padres before we hit up the Discord room. I see a bunch of comments in there. The Padres are going wild here. The Padres obviously lost Jurickson Profar in this offseason. They need to replace him in the lineup. Profar had one of the best out-of-nowhere seasons of all time. We all know that. He's with the Braves now. So what is this team going to do? Well, we've heard this is the plan on the infield, right? The plan on the infield is the following. They'll have Luis Ariz at first base. Second base is going to be Cronenworth. Third base, Machado. Shortstop is going to be Xander Bogaerts. So that's going to be the look of the infield on a consistent basis. The catchers will be Diaz and Campusano. Okay, so the infield is set. In the outfield, Merrill's going to be out there every day. We know that. Okay, he's set. What are they doing at the other spots here? Well, Fernando Tatis, pretty sure he's set in the lineup too, right? Okay, so that leaves the DH spot and the left field spot here. The DH, they got a bunch of guys now, and we'll see how they fill that. They basically signed Jason Heyward to be the lefty of a platoon in left field with Connor Joe. Connor Joe will face left-handed pitching and get his 172 plate appearances. Jason Heyward will face righties and get his 425 plate appearances. That's the plan that the Padres currently have. Now, they also signed Gavin Sheets. Okay, now Gavin Sheets is not somebody that who get excited about that, but he was signed to a minor league contract. He was invited to spring. He doesn't do anything defensively, but he could be in a platoon scenario at the DH spot if they want to go that direction. Right now, they've got Tiro Ornelas, Rosario, I can't speak, sorry, Tyler Wade, they needed to make a move, and they made a move. They made multiple low-level, inexpensive, short-term moves and hope to piece it together. And it's not the worst thing in the world for the Padres to go Sheets, Connor Joe, and Jason Heyward. It's not the worst thing in the world. It could work out. It could also be an absolute disaster, and by May 15th, they're picking guys up off the waiver wire, right? So we'll watch this situation. I don't think that anyone, Sheets, Joe, or Heyward, none of them figure to emerge as a daily player that has enough of an impact to be someone that we're concerned with in the mixed league. So this is more just this is what we're doing here. Again, more one of these NL only, really important NL only scenario. But if Connor Joe plays up to expectations, Heyward plays up to expectations, they could get a 270, 20 home runs, 75 RBI season out of their left field, which is not appreciably different than Jurickson Profar. Is that likely to happen? Yeah. But we'll see. That's apparently what the Padres are trying to do, at least with their outfield mix there. They obviously have some work to do. And there's still guys out there. There'll still be movement in spring, obviously. So maybe it's not the end of the road in terms of the movements that the Padres are making. Obviously, trying to have success in the division. It's got the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, the Giants. We don't worry about the Rockies and the NL West, but everyone else, these are competitive teams, and the Padres trying to do their part to keep up pace. All right, let's look at the chat. Remember, if you're watching live on youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, or on Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite, you can leave comments that we will address throughout the show. So let's see here. I see a bunch of comments. Let's see if there's any questions or if everyone's just talking to each other. I am old, so I know Philly doesn't get many shots. I asked John earlier how old he was if he saw the last Super Bowl. He said he's old and he knows they don't get many shots. I'm old too. I'm spoiled. For those people that don't know, I'm from the Bay Area. So I grew up in the Niners won every year. The A's, right as I was being born, had a three years in a row where they won the World Series, but then they weren't very good. The Giants were not good at all when I was a kid. The Warriors were not very good when I was a kid. So it was all the Niners. Then we had a period of time where the Warriors kind of got hot, Run TMC. Then the Giants in '89 and the A's, they had the World Series that we played against each other. I was again at the earthquake game, October 17th, 5:04 p.m., 1989. Lone Parade earthquake hit. I was at the game at Candlestick. So anyway, I was very fortunate as a kid to see a lot of that success. So I don't take it for granted at all. And so when the Giants won their 3 World Series last decade, that was something special because the Giants, despite all their success, had never won a World Series on the West Coast. It had been since they were the New York Giants. So it was really great to share that with my dad, by the way. Okay, let's see here. Let's scroll down a little bit. Where's Bregman going to end up and how many strong years does he have? Oh, David, you jumped the gun on us there. David asked this question about 15 minutes before we talked about Bregman. To answer your question, I don't know where he's going to end up. How many strong years does he have left? I think there's 4 or 5 years of him being the guy he is now. It's not sexy or exciting. It's fine. I think he's fine. And I think that he should rebound a little bit from last season. The on-base percentage in particular went down last year. I think there should be a rebound there. It's not a star. From a fantasy perspective, it would be really interesting to see him in Fenway because the Red Sox are said to want to play him at second base, which would be nice to open up dual position eligibility for him. My guess and lean at the moment is he ends up back with the Astros, but again, I have no inside knowledge on that. Angela says, I thought the Flyers victory parade in 1975. Broad Street Bullies. There you go. Yeah. 1975. Hockey. If you are a hockey fan now, go watch some of the old hockey games. Such a different game. Like you could not recognize. Tiger wouldn't have a spot in the NHL right now today, right? Yeah, so totally different world. Angela said, I drafted a team. I got the first pick. I took Ohtani, Elly De La Cruz in the 3rd round. Well, that's really surprising. Ohtani's got an ADP of number 1 at the NFBC, so that's not surprising. Elly De La Cruz, ADP is 5. You got him in the 3rd round, Angelo? Wow. I mean, that's spectacular. He was going in the 2nd round last year. I don't know how the hell that happened. So, Angelo, you have people not paying attention in your league. You're in a good spot right now. John G says, Ray, you're low on Correa in the rankings. I know he missed time last season. Is that why? The real problem with Correa is, one, you hit it directly there on the head, John, is that he can't be trusted to be on the field. Okay? And even the previous 3 years, he basically missed a month of season. I just don't like that. Now, again, playing 135, 40 games is kind of the standard anymore. It's not appreciably different. But 136 games, 135 games, that's him missing an entire month, 2 years in a row. And then last season, he barely played half the games. He was not very effective at all in 2023. He was very effective offensively in 2024. The problem with Correa is we don't know which Correa is going to show up. We don't know how long it's going to be before he gets nicked up. And unfortunately with Correa, most of the time when he gets nicked up, I can't say he doesn't play through it, but he doesn't necessarily perform through it. He doesn't run. His last stolen base was 2019. He does not run. 0 steals in 5 seasons. 0. And with his plantar fasciitis and all, he's not running. Okay, so that he's attempted 1 steal in 5 years. So he's not just a 0. He's a 0 in the steals department. His batting average, if you look at it, the last time he hit 280, 291, and 310 in 2 of the last 3 years. At the same time, if you look at his batting average the last 5 years, I'm going to say it's 273. What is it? Let's see. Batting average, it's 273. 273 the last 5 years. His career average is 275. So let's call him a 275 hitter, which I'm comfortable with. He's not a 300 hitter. He's a 270 hitter who doesn't run because I have to look at him and think he's going to play 125 games, 130 games. He's going to go 20-70. I mean, he's going to score 60 runs. Like that's just, and if you look at the numbers the last 3 years, 2070 with 60 runs is pretty close to what he's done. I've always thought Carlos Correa, and I've said this, I don't know if I've ever said it on this show. I probably have. I've said it many times over here. You watch Carlos Correa on a good day, and that guy's a league MVP. Like his combination of defense and offense on the right day, you'll see him drive a ball to right center field, play great defense, he'll go 3 for 4 at the dish, rob a base hit. Like his actions are smooth. He looks the part. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He looks the part, but he just can't stay on the field. So those are the reasons why he's low. If you wanted to draft Carlos Correa, and frankly, I mean, I have no. If Carlos Correa is your middle infielder, I think you're fine. If you're just starting shortstop, you've waited way too long. The NFBC has his ADP at the shortstop position is 24th overall. So again, if you're in a 15-team league and he's your mixed league guy, sure. If you're in a 10 or 12-team league, even the NFBC, who's more bullish on him than I am, even they aren't. I mean, he'd be the last starting middle infielder. He's 24th. So that's kind of my thought there. I wish I was wrong, and if he does stay healthy, again, I play the game of what is, not what could be. Other people play the game of what could be. We talked last week about people drafting Jacob deGrom in the top 50 overall. To me, that is nonsense. People say, shoot for the moon. Don't play it safe. Go big or go home. Fine. That's fine. If you don't mind finishing in last place, that's fine. I'd like to have all you have a chance to win your league. I'm not taking chances with guys that I can't trust to be on the field or guys that are deficient in a variety of categories. Because if you get Carlos Correa, you have to pair him with a speedy guy, right? You have to take Mason Wynn around earlier and hope that Mason Wynn steals 35 bases this year because you're getting a 0 from Correa. It's just, and if he's hitting 271 or 3 instead of 303. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Carlos Correa. Nobody drafted Bo Bichette. I'd love to know, Angelo, is this league like a 16 league? Like how small is this league? How is Bo Bichette not drafted? Bo Bichette's ADP is 125. I don't know. You got some weird things going on in that league there, Angelo. And then I see you got your outfield of Churio, Merrill, and Profar. Profar, he's not a third outfielder. Love Churio and Merrill, but you're missing a big time outfielder there. So interesting build. I don't know. And you took Sasaki in the last round. Angelo, how many teams are in your league, Angelo? 10-team ESPN league. I don't know. You're gonna have a really good team this year. I'll say that, Angelo. You're in a good spot because you got everyone, as we're discussing here. You put together a team that you shouldn't have been able to put together. And I would give serious consideration to adding Bo Bichette if he's on the waiver wire. Let's see here. Sean says DFS hockey is pretty straightforward. By the way, if you look over my shoulder here, you will see the all-in MVP plan, over at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab at the top right. Sign up for the MVP plan, and you get hoops, and you get hockey. And you also get all the other sports. You basically get everything we do besides football and baseball. NASCAR, MMA, PGA, hockey, basketball, college basketball. You get all that. FantasyGuru.com. Subscribe top right corner. Get the MVP plan. Let's see here. More comments. Angela, are you in a points league? Because you said he's listed 69 in the draft. Maybe it's a points league. That might speak to some of the reason with all the strikeouts that he was lowered a little bit. Eric S. said, great time of year. Looking forward to the conversation for the next 7 weeks. Yeah, we finally got football out of the way, right, Eric? And I did not make homemade tortilla chips. I got the Casa Sanchez chips, the thick ones. Those are the ones we used yesterday. Eric commented on social media. You can follow me at the Ray Flowers. I posted some pictures that we made homemade wings yesterday. But yeah, I just used Casa Sanchez, which are pretty good. I like Casa Sanchez chips. Thanks for the comments. Yeah, head-to-head points league. There you go, Angelo. So that makes a little bit of sense there. But still, sounds like you put together a really good team. And I'd give some strong consideration to adding Bo Bichette to your roster. Okay, I'm Ray Flowers at FantasyGuru.com. The show is here Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can always send us a note, support at FantasyGuru.com, support at FantasyGuru.com. If you have any questions about the products, about the show, about anything having to do with the website, I'm constantly checking the rankings every day at FantasyGuru.com for baseball and updating them as needed. I'm in the Discord every day, so feel free to shoot the questions in there if you got anything you want to discuss. Just a quick update on what we're doing this week on the site. What are the dates? Today's the 10th. So SWIP went up today. Tomorrow's average bases allowed. And for those people that have never picked up average bases allowed, you don't know what it is. tune into the show tomorrow because I'll mention it a little bit because, to be honest with you, I am really surprised, and not just because this is something I helped create. I am really surprised this is not caught on because it is a much better tool, straight up, a much better tool than WHIP. So we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow. That article goes up tomorrow. Then we have a week of players to target and avoid, pitchers to target and avoid, players to target and avoid, relievers to target and avoid. So we're kind of doing that this week. Next week we'll dive in. I'm looking at the schedule. Next week we'll dive into looking at a lot of the deeper analytics for the offensive side of things like barrel rate, exit velocity, launch angles. Unfortunately, the draft book will debut next week. The draft book is that combination of the rankings and the auction values. I'll talk more about that on the show. I hate it. I hate doing it. I would never use it, but everyone loves it. So you use whatever works for you. This is the tool that we have at our disposal that we can give to you. I know a lot of you love it. You wait for it. You ask for it. So we do it every year. I'll explain it as we get into it next week, the draft book. Currently set to drop on Friday of the 21st. So 10 days from now, we'll see how it goes. What, 10 days from now? That doesn't seem right. What the hell day is today? So that's not the right. I can't even count. That'd be, yeah, it would be 10 days from now. I can't count. Never mind. I had 4 or 5 beers yesterday at the Super Bowl. Maybe my mind isn't working. Anyway, we'll talk about that. That's kind of the schedule here for the next couple of days. All right, so we'll be back here tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the show. Monday through Friday, Justin Fensterman hosts on Wednesdays. I'm with Jeff Mans on the Elite Sports Show on Wednesdays from 3 to 6 Eastern. That show is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 Eastern. Today, tune in at 3 o'clock Eastern for Jeff, and I'm assuming 3 hours of Super Bowl talk. Don't know that. Didn't talk to him last night or this morning about a show plan, so I'm guessing. But there'll be a heavy dose of the Super Bowl. If you just can't get enough, you just want a little bit more discussion about the Super Bowl, I'm sure Jeff will have you taken care of on the show today. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you all again tomorrow. I am Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com, and this has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by that very source, FantasyGuru.com. We'll see you on Tuesday.